Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today it is time for me to put out into the universe my fantasy predictions for the Goodreads Choice Awards of 2024. I love the Goodreads Choice Awards. I have so much fun every year trying to figure out what's going to be in the lists and what books to predict and what books are going to win after the list of 20 comes out. And so I have a lot of fun with it. I did a prediction video last year and I did pretty well. So I'm hoping to do just as well this year or maybe a little bit better. I am going to turn it into a game this year. So at the end of the video, I will describe my rules, my point system, my punishments, my rewards, if you are interested in that. But I also am going to do a prediction of the top 20. However, the bottom 10 of the top 20, I'm not going to rank. I'm just going to say they're going to be in this grouping. And then the top 10, I will rank from bottom to top for you guys. I'm also going to give you guys some statistics because I created this list by looking at a whole bunch of different things. I looked at the average rating on Goodreads, the number of the number of ratings on Goodreads, also the book of the month lists, the Goodreads list that comes out, like their news articles and things like that. I also have looked at kind of word of mouth. Which books have I heard about? Which books do I think are going around on Instagram and booktube? Which ones do I hear a lot of hype over? And so some of it is definitely subjective, but I think I have a pretty good list. The first thing I'm going to give you guys is 4 honorable mentions that did not meet my expectations, I guess, my requirements for what I think the top 20 are going to be, but I still think they need to be mentioned because I think they have a possibility of being on the list for various reasons. The first one of those is one I'm probably least confident with, and that is the Delegate Dream department store. And the reason I'm not sure if this will make the list is because I don't know if it meets the publication requirements. This was originally published in 2020, but I think that was in its original language and it has been translated this year. But I found 2 different pub dates and I'm not sure. I think one of them was in early November of 2023. And so that could potentially make it not, and I don't know if it was by Wildfire, which I know is a US publisher, but I'm not sure if that date is going to disqualify it. But this is absolutely excellent. I have it in my collection. I rated it a 4.5 star. This book has a 3.75 average rating on Goodreads out of 14,706 ratings total. And like I said, it was published in early November, published in the United States, I should say, in November of 2023. So I would love for it to make the list. I'm just not confident that it will. Next on my honorable mentions is The Goddess of the River. I promise that I don't own every single one of the books I'm going to talk about. It's just those 2 from my honorable mentions list. But this is by Vaishnavi Patel, who was in the Goodreads Choice Awards for her debut novel, Kaikai. And this book has a 3.84 average rating, 2,552 ratings total, and it was published in May. So because of the fact that it doesn't have quite as many ratings as some of the other books that you are going to see on my predictions list is why it didn't end up making my top 20. But because of the fact that it's Vaishnavi Patel, and I know a lot of people absolutely loved Kaikai, it has a chance. Next is An Academy for Liars, and this book is by Alexis Henderson, which Alexis Henderson has been on the Goodreads Choice Awards before. This book was published in September, and so I think that's holding it back a little bit. It has an average rating of 3.63 and 2,797 ratings so far on Goodreads. So I just don't know if it has the audience. She does have name recognition to a certain extent, and so she might end up on the list, but I have not predicted that. The last honorable mention I have is I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, which has an average rating of 3.75, 4,200 ratings total, and it was published in May. I can't believe, and I might be wrong, but this is the same author as The Last Unicorn, and I couldn't find anywhere that they've been nominated before for Goodreads Choice Awards, which they've written a lot. So it kind of surprised me, but I don't think it has the viewership with only 4,000 people who've rated the book to win the Goodreads Choice Awards, but it does have enough recognition, especially with it being the author of The Last Unicorn, to potentially make it on the list. but not one of my predictions. Okay, on to the top 20. So once again, I am not going to be ranking the bottom 10 of the top 20. I'm just going to tell you the books that I think are going to be on the list. And then once we get to the top 10, that's when I will start ranking. So the first book is When Among Crows. This is by Veronica Roth, who wrote the Divergent series, and it has an average rating of 3.72 with 11,647 ratings total on Goodreads. It was published in May, and this author has been on the Goodreads Choice Awards before. With the author being really well known, I think that name recognition is something that will be a thing. And then this book is also very short, and so I do think that it has maybe a little bit further reach because a lot of people don't like to reach for those really chunky fantasy books, and so maybe that gives it a little bit of an edge over the competition. Next is the only one that I question whether or not this is going to be in the bottom 10 or the top 10. It's on the precipice of me wanting to move it up, but I just couldn't find a spot for it, and that is Empire of the Damned. This is by Jay Kristoff, and it has an average rating of 4.57 on Goodreads, which is absolutely ludicrous because there are 15,122 people that have rated this book. This is the second in a series, and so that does help with the average rating being higher because most people who continue a series tend to enjoy it. It's been out since February, and Jay Kristoff has been recognized in the Goodreads Choice Awards before. So this one, because of the name, Jay Kristoff, a lot of people have that name recognition, and that the people who have read this seem to really love it. It might be in top 10, but I'm going to say that it's in the bottom 10. Next, we have Sunbringer, which has an average rating of 3.92 and 9,963 ratings on Goodreads. This was published in March, and I really hope this is on the list because last year Godkiller was not, which shocked me. So I hope that Hannah Kaner ends up getting some recognition for this really amazing series, but we'll see. Next, I have The Book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence. So this book has a 4.08 average rating on Goodreads. 6,615 people have rated it. It came out in April, and Mark Lawrence was on the Goodreads Choice Awards last year for The Book That Wouldn't Burn, which was the original book here. So I do think this has a chance in being the top 20. Because of how few people have rated it, I don't think that it will be in the top 10, which is a shame because it's fantastic. Next, we have The Bright Sword, and this has a 4.02 average rating on Goodreads, 6,198 ratings. It came out in July. The author of this has been on the Goodreads Choice Awards before, and I have seen this on a ton of lists. It's on my TBR. I haven't gotten to it yet, but just for the fact that I feel like I haven't heard anybody talk about it on BookTube, and that just might be the circles that I'm in might not know about the book, but I keep seeing it places, and so it makes me feel like it's gonna end up making the list. Lady Macbeth is the next book. This is by Ava Reed, and it has an average rating of 3.54. So technically, if it gets any lower ratings, it could potentially knock itself off of the list for not meeting that rating requirement of Goodreads. It has 8,123 ratings. It came out in August, and Ava Reed has been nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards before. Out of all of my top 20 predictions, I hope that this one doesn't make the list because it seems like a lot of people don't really enjoy the book, but I know that Ava Reed does have a following, and some of their books have been recognized before, so I'm thinking it might make the list. Okay, I changed my mind. If any of the books that I mentioned don't make it, I want it to be this next one because I hated this book. And that is How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying. And this has a 3.75. It has 5,115 ratings. It came out in May. This is by Django Wexler, and I know a lot of people have absolutely loved the Ashes of the Sun series. I can't remember what the series name is, but that's the first book in the series. And I have read that as well, and I thought it was okay. But I tried this one, and I ended up DNFing this at 50%. I was so annoyed with the main character. So I hope this doesn't make it, but I know I've seen it a ton of places. It's been on a lot of lists. I've heard a lot of people talking about it on BookTube because it has such a fun title. I hope it doesn't. Next is Voyage of the Damned. This is another one that I might be wrong with publication. I know this came out in the UK last year, but I'm pretty sure the Goodreads Choice Awards focuses on publication dates in the United States, but I might be wrong, so correct me in the comments if you know better than I do. This currently has a 3.99 average rating on Goodreads. 5,847 people have rated it. It came out in January in the United States. And so I do think it has a good chance. If I'm correct, I think this might be a debut work as well. So if it's not in the fantasy category, maybe it will end up in the debut category. Next, I have Hera, which has a 3.65 average rating on Goodreads. 6,194 people have rated it. It came out in August. This author is Jennifer Saint, who has been a Goodreads Choice Awards nominee many times in the past. I also always feel like there is at least one mythology in the fantasy list. And so if there's going to be one, Jennifer Saint is probably going to be the one that makes it. This is also a book of the month book club. No, book of the month book. And so those also a lot of times will end up on the list. So that's why I think this one will probably make top 20. The last book I think will make top 20, but not into the top 10, is going to be The Gin Waits 100 Years. This book has a 3.86 average rating, has 4,738 ratings, and it came out in January. I really liked this. I thought it was good. It's a fantasy horror, but really light on both of them. And so, I don't know. I could see it being recognized because it's such an interesting story. And I have heard several people on BookTube talk about it, several big booktubers, and so we'll see. Okay, on to the top 10. So from this point on, they are ranked, and this was really hard. I think this was harder than last year as far as making my list goes. So we'll see how I do. On the number 10 spot, I believe that this will be The Lost Story by Megan Schaefer. And I really was hesitant to put this in the fantasy list because I don't know if it was last year, if it was the year before that, but The Wishing Game was on the Goodreads Choice Awards and did really well, but it was in the fiction category. However, this one is a book of the month book, and it's denoted on Book of the Month as fantasy, and that's like the main category on Goodreads, and so I feel like it might end up in the fantasy category. I haven't read it, so I do not know whether or not I would deem it as fantasy. This has a 3.86 average rating on Goodreads, 18,078 ratings total. It came out in July, and this author, Megan Schaefer, has been nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards before. The reason I put it at number 10, because it does have a lot more ratings on Goodreads than some of the other books I'm going to mention in my top 10. I put it at number 10 because I think it will get less views or less ratings on the Goodreads Choice Awards for fantasy. At least that's my assumption. I think if it was in fiction again, I think that it would probably have a better chance of getting higher ratings or a higher placement. But because it's in fantasy, I just don't know. In the number 9 spot is a book that I had never heard of before, but in my research, I kept coming across it, and this is The Foxwife. This has a 4.01 rating on Goodreads, average rating. The number of ratings is 12,294. It came out in February. This author has been a Goodreads Choice Awards nominee before, and this was a book of the month book. And so, I don't know. Once again, I haven't ever heard of it, but that doesn't mean that it won't be on the list, because there were some books last year that I had never heard of, and 12,000 people have already rated it on Goodreads. And I know it came out in February, so it has had a lot of time to gain that amount of ratings, but I don't know. I have a feeling about this book. Coming in at the number 8 spot is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. This has an average rating of 4.01 on Goodreads. The number of ratings is 17,394. It came out in February. Catherine Arden is a Goodreads Choice Awards author. She has been nominated before. I also think that she has name recognition, and so I think that she will get a decent number of votes. Number 7, I put The Blackbird Oracle. This is from the All Souls series. I think this is number 5 in the series, which is one of the reasons it made my top 10. It's got a 4.15 average rating on Goodreads. 17,953 people have rated it. It came out in July. This author is Deborah Harkness, who has been a Goodreads nominee before. I also think because of the start of this series, which was, I think, called The Discovery of Witches, which I've heard a lot of people talk about, I think the series has a lot of recognition, a lot of fan following, and so I do think that this is going to make it in the top 10. Specifically, I think it's going to be the number 7 spot, but we'll see. Number 6 is a T. Kingfisher, which I am really excited, and that is A Sorceress Comes to Call. This is, or has a 4.17 average rating on Goodreads, 12,993 people have rated it. It is, and then T. Kingfisher has been nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards before. I think this has a good chance of being in the number 6 spot because of the fact that it's a T. Kingfisher. Even though this has 12,000 ratings, whereas like the Blackbird Oracle that I just mentioned has 17,000. I think that T. Kingfisher, even though maybe not as many people have read this particular book, I think T. Kingfisher is going to get votes because of the name. But we'll find out. I really liked this. I thought it was a really good retelling. I've never read Goose Girl, which is what it was based off of, but I think that it had dark components. I really felt for the main character. I would like to see this in the number 6 spot. The number 5 spot, I'm really excited about, and I didn't realize that this book had this many ratings. And because of the number of ratings it has, it should probably be higher on my list, but it's also a debut, and so I'm a little nervous about rating it more than the 5th spot. The Book of Doors. So I recently read this for my read until I get a 5-star, and it was definitely a 5-star. This is my favorite book of the year so far, and it's from a debut author, which I just find really amazing. So I'm excited that this has had so much recognition because currently has a 4.04 average rating on Goodreads. It has 33,288 ratings. I was shocked. I really wanted this to be on the list. So this was one of the first books I put on my list to go and check Goodreads just to see. And I really did not have any hopes on this being on the Goodreads Choice Awards because I didn't think anyone had read it. But it seems a lot of people have. So maybe I'm a little out of touch, but I'm glad in this instance because I really want this to be on the list. Because of the fact that it's a debut, I know that the name recognition isn't there, and so I'm not quite sure if it will make it past the 5th spot. I would love it if it did, but I'm saying that this is going to have the number 5th spot. The number 4th spot is another book that I've loved, and that is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. And I hope, beyond hope, that this does make it into at least the top 5. I'm not sure because it is a fantasy mystery, but oh, it's oh so good. And Robert Jackson Bennett has been on the Goodreads Choice Awards before, so it does have that going for it. It also has a really high average rating, 4.32 out of 21,842 votes, or 42 ratings. So, I mean, it's got a really high rating for having so many people that have read it. It came out in February, so it has that going for it. And like I said, Robert Jackson Bennett is someone who's been on Goodreads Choice Awards before. I also think that his name is fairly recognizable because of the Founders trilogy that he wrote, as well as like The City of Stairs. I've heard a lot of people talk about recently. So fingers crossed, this is my number 4 vote. Number 3 is going to be Somewhere Beyond the Sea, which is by TJ Klune. I have never read either book. This is the second book in the House in the Cerulean Sea series, I think. And House in the Cerulean Sea did get nominated in the Goodreads Choice Awards. Did it win? I'll put up on the screen like what ranking it got, but it was pretty high if I remember correctly. And so I do think that this has a good chance for that. It also has a phenomenal average rating, 4.36 out of 27,853 ratings total. It came out in September. So it's insane that it has that many ratings for something that came out in September. My number 2 spot is another one that I have absolutely loved, and that is Emily Wilde's The Map of the Otherlands. This is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which was also on the Goodreads Choice Awards last year. I think it came in 3rd. And so I think that this has a good chance of being number 2 is what I'm voting for, but I definitely think it'll be at least top 5. This is going to have an average, or this has an average rating of 4.31. 49,568 people have rated it so far, and this came out in January. And like I said, the sequel to the book before this one, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, did very well in the Goodreads Choice Awards last year. So I think this one has high hopes. My number 1 spot is going to go to a book that I haven't read yet. I do want to read it, but I'll be a little sad if this one wins. And that is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This has an average rating of 3.81, which is one of the reasons I will be sad if it wins. It has 71,374 ratings on Goodreads right now. It came out in April, and then Leigh Bardugo has been a Goodreads Choice Awards nominee and winner, which is another reason I would be sad if this one won, because Leigh Bardugo won the fantasy category last year with Hellbent, and so I would really like to see someone else win this year. But I know that Leigh Bardugo has a huge following and name recognition goes a long way in the Goodreads Choice Awards, as we all know, and so I wouldn't be surprised if this had the #1 spot. So I have given you my predictions. I now want to explain to you how the game is going to work whenever I do my reaction video, and how I'm going to acquire points, what's going to be a reward for me, what's going to be a punishment for me. So the points are going to be accumulated in the following. I will get 1 point per book that I get in the top 20. So any of the books that I have listed, with the exception of the honorable mentions in this video, if they are in the top 20, I will get 1 point per book. I also will get another point per book if I guessed the correct placement in the top 10. And then I will get 0.5 points, so half of a point per book, if I'm 1 place off. So if I ended up guessing that it was going to be in 4th place, but it ends up being in 5th place, I would still get half a point for that. Last year, I went back and looked at my video and looked at the top 20. And last year, I obtained 12 points following these rules. And so 12 is going to be my goal this year. So if I get 12 points, so if I break even with my score from last year, if I get 12 points, I get to purchase one of the nominees of my choice. It does not have to be from the fantasy group. So if I would like to purchase from like the horror group or whatever, I can, but I get to purchase one nominee. I'm very excited about this. This could give me a reason to purchase books. And then the second thing, or the thing I really want to have happen, is if I get 13 points or higher. So if I beat my score from last year, I get to purchase a nominee. So I get the original reward that I had stated, but then I also get to purchase a favorite book for this year. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Goodreads Choice nominee. It can be, any of my favorite books that I've read this year. So if I win in my game, essentially I will get to buy 2 books, which I'm excited about. The punishments, because if I'm going to have a reward, I have to have a punishment. If I get less than 12 points, so if I don't beat my score from last year, I will have to do a reading vlog for you guys where I read 2 or 3, depending on the books, of the lowest rated nominees from this year. So I will look at the vast list. It doesn't have to be fantasy. It could be horror or any genre that I'm interested in. I will look at all of the books that are in the top 20s, and I will look at which ones are lowest rated on Goodreads, which I know like they all have to be a 3.5 or higher, but still, I still think it's fair. And I have to pick 2 or 3 of them to read for a reading vlog for you guys. So that is my list of predictions and my game that I'm going to play with my reaction video. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys have some books that you think will be on the Goodreads Choice Awards that I didn't mention, or if you disagree with my placement of a book, let me know what your predictions are. If you don't feel like being chatty today, feel free to just leave a little list emoji for making my Goodreads Choice Awards list, just so I know that you're here in the comments with me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!